Time for the Workbench here on the Undercut, and it's our chance to delve into a couple of topics and issues. Boys, I like to solve problems. I think we've got some problems here. Problem, would you agree that cars are not on track in supercars often enough in a calendar year?
Well, yeah, certainly in racing terms, absolutely.
Okay, but full stop.
Yes.
Okay, problem, cars not being on the track means that there's not as much content, not as much stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
Hard to argue against.
Okay, rookie drivers need more of a crack at getting more time in these cars.
Yes.
Well, 3 problems, 1 solution. I was actually watching recently some of the sports in America and indeed the AFL here and some of the other football codes. We have drafts. So the teams that don't go so well get the better opportunity in the draft the next year. You finish last on the ladder, you get the number 1 draft pick, that sort of thing. I was thinking that we need to have more testing in supercars overall. 2 days a year just doesn't cut it. I mean, we need cars on track more often. And if we're in a situation potentially next year where there's only 12 rounds, I mean, it's being discussed that it could be that way. Even if it's 14 or 12, it's not enough over the course of a whole year. So I'd like to see us change testing here. I'd like to see us take the Teams Championship and apply it so as those at the end, I've got some graphics here, I've brought some material, I've come prepared. If you finish at the top 3 of Teams Championship, so at the moment, 888 Groves and Tickford, you get to stick with what you got now. 2 test days for the year. That's a whole other debate about when they should happen and how they should happen. But what I'd like to see is a tiered system where you've got something else to get out of the Teams Championship. Now, for those who aren't quite there, the next batch, 4th, 5th, 6th, Walkinshaw's, DJR, Team 18, give them an extra test day. Now, my preface here is you don't have to use it if you don't want to, but you've got it if you would like to.
They'll use it, Noonan.
Oh, they'll find a way to use it.
It'll be used.
So Matchstone Racing, BJR, Erebus are next. Give them an extra day. And then the bottom 2 teams in the championship, Premier and Blanchards at the moment, as it sits, give them more. Give them up to 5 test days a year. More time for their co-drivers. More time for these teams who generally have rookie drivers. What are your thoughts and feelings on this? Put your team caps aside, but from the betterment of the sport, from the betterment of all those things I outlined at the front.
I mean, it's a tricky one, Noons, because I think it opens up the whole testing conversation. So a lot of people that are watching this show may not know from how test day works from our side. And the biggest problem with testing for me at the moment is a lack of tyres. So when we go testing, we don't get brand new tyres. We'll turn up and go, oh, these have done, one set will have done 80 kilometres at Townsville, the next set will have done 35 kilometres from Queensland Raceway, and the next set would have done 20 kilometres at Tasmania, right? So then you're going out on track and you don't know the quality of the tyre. That's the first issue. The second part of that is the test tracks. Winton, the Victorian teams, don't get to race there. And we see the advantage when you get to test at a track where you race. You look at Zach Bates in the wildcard this year, tested at Queensland Raceway, got to race there and put the testing to good use. So you've got to actually give the teams and drivers proper testing because, to be honest, if you don't race at Winton, you might as well do test days on a runway or something like that because they're not completely beneficial when you don't get to race there.
So should some of the testing be opened up now that you can test at other tracks, one other nominated track?
Well, what I like this year, and Moff might agree or disagree, is the fact that we did our pre-endurance test day at Queensland Raceway after the race. It's the first time I've tested anywhere other than Winton in maybe 10 years, and we've been racing there. So you had a yardstick of performance, you had a yardstick from where the team was with their primary driver, and we turned up Monday or Tuesday, whichever day it was, and we got to do a full day's testing. That to me was great. So maybe, I like what you're proposing. I think it's a good idea to kind of give the teams championship some more weight, but I do like an element of the rookie thing with what Formula One do, giving drivers a run on the Friday. So whether it's before the race weekend or after the race weekend, the ability to test and get miles at circuits where you're going to race at that you otherwise can't test at is something that I would put in the mix there.
I don't think this would change the whole landscape. Those teams at the back of the Teams Championship are not going to have extra days next year suddenly win races. That's not going to be that simple. My point coming from this is all those elements I mentioned at the front. More cars on track more often, so therefore more content, more things to talk about, more things to film, more things to get on the news. The bit is putting the athletes on the playing field. So in football, they're playing every weekend, but they're training during the week as well, usually 2 times a week. So they're on the field. You guys are not on the field very often, whether you're racing for real, testing, doing whatever it might be. So I'm just trying to find a way that we can get more cars on a track more often.
Yeah, and that's where motorsport is very unique in that aspect that for a footballer, a golfer, a cricketer, they practice their sport by actually performing their sport.
You can go in the nets and
You can go and hit as many golf balls every day of the week as you want. You can go and kick the footy as much as you want every day of the week. But for a race car driver and the teams, we can't go to the track every day and practice what we do.
But
So-
you two are about to go into the biggest race of the year. Effectively, we're asking you to play in the grand final, having barely trained all year. I think co-drivers have got such an unfair situation here where the amount of time that they've had in a race car to go and perform on the biggest and grandest stage in front of the biggest audience of the year, the pressure that goes on you because of the level of prep that you can't have, I think it's grossly unfair. And for these test days, surely there's got to be a point where you get a test day or two just for the co-drivers, just for you, not a case of how many laps the team decides to give you because the main guy's busy doing setup work or whatever it might be. No, there's a day or two purely for your signed, locked-in endurance driver.
Yeah, well, that a situation like that might be, viable moving forward. But, Jack touched on it with the tyres. I remember back in 2014 when I was at Nissan Motorsport, and Nissan had arranged for two of their factory drivers to come out and test the Nissan Altima.
Michael Krum was one of them, wasn't he?
so-
Lucas Ordonez.
Yeah, correct. So one was in the Jack Daniels car, Michael Krum, and Lucas Ordonez drove my Norton car. And I remember speaking with Michael out the back of the garage, and he said when they went testing, he was a Japan GT, factory Nissan driver, Japan GT. And he said when they went testing, they would have 15 sets of brand new tyres all lined up. Every time he would go out on track, brand new set of tyres. And I remember on that day, the team had managed to secure one brand new set for him to have a go on at the end of the day. Otherwise, like Jack said, you're using your best dirty clothes throughout the day in terms of tyres.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's rubbish really to think that the teams are put in those situations because it's the only thing that connects the car to the road is the rubber that's underneath it.
Yeah, and to give you another real sport example, it'd be like Pat Cummins and Mitchell Stark going into the nets for the weeks leading into the Ashes using second-hand balls.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they finally get a brand new ball in the game. It's like, oh, hang on, this thing's doing a bit different to what it was doing in the net.
It's moving off the pitch.
But imagine telling those guys, oh, we're going to save a bit of money here and we won't give you new balls. Like, that's what the tyre situation's like. It's just, it's crappy.
When you ask team owners, and I've asked a few at the Bend, that what does a test day cost you? And they all say, bugger all.
Yeah.
I mean, in the grand scheme of things, not very much at all. I mean, even if you took some staff to head up to Winton the night before to set up, or a couple of nights of a night of hotels and the like, for the amount of money that these teams spend, this wouldn't even touch the sides. You wouldn't even see it, but the benefits would be far bigger.
Well, and by the testing restrictions that are being put in place now, the teams are now having to invest in simulation programs and other bits and pieces to try and make up for that shortfall. So the fact of the matter is...
They're still spending the money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Motorsport is expensive. You're never going to get around that, and the teams that have the money and the ways of spending that money are always going to find ways to do it.
And one last point on the test days, and I refer back to Queensland Raceway. Why wouldn't we have live timing on a pre-endurance test day? And further to that, don't separate it in car numbers, separate it in driver numbers.
Yep.
So at the end of the test day, instead of having 25 times, drivers' times, there would have been 50.
Yep.
And you go, oh, that co-driver's not on the pace. That
Stories, content.
Stories, content, you're right. And just make it meaningful. And then, everyone got tyres, everyone had lap times. Let's get some form and, like you say, something to talk about.
Yeah, and that's the big thing. And it will stop us talking about a lot of these things because it will actually give us something to talk about. Something else that we chased up at V8 Sleuth, which occurred to us at the Bend, obviously in the off-season we're going to see some teams convert cars to Toyota Supras. Walkinshaw's are converting one of their Mustangs. Brad Jones's team will convert some Camaros. And we asked the question, do they get a new car shakedown day, which is only a 20 lap or a 60 kilometre run that's permitted for new cars. And we were told by Tim Edwards, and there's a story on our website this week, that no, they're not deemed new cars because the chassis are the same. But there's precedent here that you go back to 2020 when Kelly's converted a Nissan into a Ford Mustang, they were given a new car shakedown day. So 20 laps isn't going to change the world, but why wouldn't we try to find a way or an excuse to say, look, It's a brand new, different engine, new wiring, new everything, new panel work. It's the chassis underneath. It's the only common element. Let it have 20 laps at Winton to give us something to write about, something to talk about, another new cars on the track, something else to write about and talk about in that January, February period.
Well, especially in that period of like you say, Noons, over January and February, you know, through the bulk of the year, Supercars is competing against the two major footy codes in the country, being the AFL and NRL.
Who are training twice a week, playing every weekend, who have drafts, have trade period. They have a 12-month news cycle and they don't play for 12 months.
Yeah, so, you know, if there's an opportunity to see a Toyota Supra running around the track for the
Why
first
not?
time for 20 laps at Winton or, you know, in February or January next year, I think it's maybe a bit of a missed opportunity from Supercars in general.
Well, and have a look at what the Americans did with Will Brown. He got to take that NASCAR for a fang around the block of the workshop. But that's further to your point. You don't want to go to the practice session on the race meeting and miss the first half an hour because, you know, something fell off the car. All you're doing, you're not testing. You're just making sure the car's going to work so that when you get to the track for the event, you've got that limited mileage. You know, you're able to use that time to your potential. And just touching on the Supra, what about that on the AFL Grand Final? Just sitting there in the background, that looked quite neat.
It looked fantastic. That was I mean, you're going to see more of that next year, where Toyota, who are a player now in Supercars, they're in AFL, they're in NRL, they're in all the top tier Aussie sports. That's the other bit that I don't think people have picked up on of why them coming to Supercars is great, because they're everywhere else. They'll take Supercars. I can't remember a Supercar being on the MCG ever, and it was in the background of probably, well, the biggest watch match of the year in the presentation when the medals and the cup were given out to the Brisbane Lions. There it was, up in the background. Okay, you didn't see it on camera all the time. 100,000 people, well, probably 90,000, 10,000 Geelong fans probably gone home by then, but they saw it and it was exposed to them that in a way that they probably ever or never are exposed to it before. Fantastic.
Would have been a few people from the race team that probably scored a couple of tickets.
I
as
think
well.
there-
It might
I
have been
think-
happy
I
as
think
well.
there
It
was.
was Vinny and Robbie Starr there, but
Yeah.
I also think that someone wanted to take it for a drive. I think that maybe the team asked if they could lead the parade lap around the boundary line. Now didn't give that thing a fang around the MCG.
I think that may
I
have
think the
been...
ground staff would be too
No.
happy if you started ripping up the
Not
turf
good for-
there.
Maybe after the game.
Maybe after the game before cricket season if you're going to relay the turf. But as always on the Workbench, plenty to discuss. Tell us what you think about the testing restrictions. Tell us what you think about my little plan for how some of those teams down the field can be able to get more testing miles. Hit us up on the V8 Sleuth website and the socials and we'll report back in future episodes.